Growing up.
It's always that. It's always that.
Yeah, so this week we have a guest that I'm really, really excited about. She just is very inspirational and just like a super cool. I don't know, you just seem like a super cool person.
Oh, thanks, guys.
I'm crushing this.
Yeah, you're on our friendship Christmas list.
Yeah, very verbose. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I want a friendship Christmas. I should make one.
You can make one for sure. So we have personal trainer and running coach Amy Rivers with us. Hey, Amy.
Hi,
Hey
Amy.
guys, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Yay.
We're so happy to have you. And so you do like a tremendous amount of running and fitness and personal training and like changing people's lives. And you're just like so fit and inspirational. And I actually learned about you from an article in a women's magazine where you said that you had turned to running as a result of your difficult upbringing. And you specifically mentioned that you had some family that had been involved in a religious cult. And so that was very interesting. So I reached out to you to see if you'd be willing to talk about it, because we love to talk about everything here on Pinky Promise. And you were like, oh yeah, totally open, willing to talk about everything.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So Laura, do you have any experience with any religious cults?
Not personally. I've been watching a lot of Scientology shows lately, but to the point that I've been watching so much of the Leah Remini one that this weekend I had dreams where I was interviewing Scientologists. I was like, maybe you should find another show. But personal experience, no. You, Katie?
No, it's mine is a strictly Netflix experience.
That's right.
I do have a friend who was raised apostolic Christian, and so I wouldn't say that it is a cult. It's a fairly large religion. I think they have bases all over the United States at minimum, and definitely in Poland. But it is a religion that is very strict, specifically for women. Like she didn't wear a dress. She like hiked Mount Kilimanjaro and in a dress. So so that's probably my most personal connection with, or ability to see experiences, but that was as a third party. So I don't personally have anything. I do have a lot of me being like, do you really think you'll go to hell if you like whatever, if you wear pants or if you do karate with a man? But other than that,
God specifically said doing karate with a man was a sin.
So I think we'll probably just leave it up to you, Amy.
We're going to toss it over to Amy, who's got the experience.
I have also watched my share of the Netflix documentaries, the HBO documentaries. My new one that I'm on that y'all have to watch if you have not seen it is The Vow.
I haven't seen it yet, and that is on my list. That's on my list for sure.
I mean, that one isn't as religious in nature as like a Scientology or something else of the sort, or what my family was involved in, but it's still a cult, and it's crazy. You've got to watch it.
That one is wild to me because it's like got big time like multi-level marketing.
That's what I picture.
On top of like the self-help things that we're all like so easily fall prey to. Like, yes, I do want to be my best self, and and I can join a women's group about it, and then now I have a man's initials branded on my body. Spoiler alert!
I'm like, I gotta go, you guys. I gotta watch the show.
No, you must watch it. I was in a multi-level marketing company years ago, and I saw so many parallels. And I mean, obviously it wasn't as extreme by any means, but just like the different like steps to get to those extremes, I was like, oh, I relate to that for sure.
That's bananas. But We'll do our vow podcast another day.
Oh yeah, I will join you for that because
I would love that.
Perfect.
Oh man. But anyway, I guess I can kind of jump in.
Sure.
Did you want me to start in any particular like where do you want me to start? I mean,
whatever. I would say we typically like to focus on the childhood aspect of it or teenagehood aspect of it. But honestly, anywhere that you want to start is cool with us because the whole thing is so fascinating to us. So honestly, just anything.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. Well, a lot of the information that I now know, I will say, was I gleaned because when I was in college, I interviewed my aunt. So my dad, who is now about 75 years old, he grew up in Williamson, New York, which is like a farming town in upstate New York, with a younger brother and then 2 older sisters. So one of his older sisters, her name is Mary Kay. She is the closest person to me. So my dad and I are estranged.
Okay.
And my mother passed away when I was 24. Okay. So my aunt, I call her Aunt Kay. She's 77 or 78, and she is just my whole world, basically. Yeah. But so she, when I was in college, I had to do this research project in a multiculturalism class. And it was about, you had to like interview someone about a religion that you weren't familiar with, or a culture that you weren't familiar with, or something. And I chose to interview her about her experience in this cult. And so the cult is called the Plymouth Brethren.
Okay.
Oh.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know. It's like
it sounds like a scary movie.
It sounds like an HBO series.
Yeah, it could be. Guys, it could be. For real. For real. And so they have, as far as I know, they have chapters kind of all over the world, or I know that it's not just in this country, because my aunt told me that the head guy or whatever actually resides in Australia.
Oh.
So it's not even just in the United States, although I feel like kind of maybe the majority is in the United States, like, but I really don't know. I do know, like I said, there was a big chapter in Williamson, New York. And then I have, a lot of family who live in North Dakota, and they live very close to the border of Canada. They live in this little town called Nitchie, and there's a big chapter there as well. So beyond that, I'm not sure, like, where the other pockets are, but I know of those 2.
Yeah.
So I grew up in upstate New York as well. I grew up in outside of Rochester, if anyone's familiar with Rochester.
Yeah, I'm from Syracuse, so.
You're from Syracuse.
Yeah, so I'm like, I know. Oh, we are excited that a dog just came into the frame. We're adding him to the Christmas friend list.
That's right.
You want to be friends with him, trust me.
Yeah.
His name is Spider-Man.
Oh.
So anyway, so I grew up in Rochester, New York, and like I said, my dad grew up like in the Plymouth Brethren, and he grew up on a farm. He and his family were farmers, and I grew up on 40 acres of farmland as well.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't as we didn't have like a lot of like animals and things. We mostly just had cats and dogs, but we had a lot of like huge gardens. So we grew a lot of crops and things like that. And we had like a farm stand. And we did maple syrup. So that was our thing.
Yeah.
But I'll certainly get into kind of the crazy things about the cult in a little bit, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about my upbringing.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I didn't really recognize the effect I think that growing up in a cult probably had on my father. And I only really recognized that maybe in like my early 20s. But I grew up in a very controlling household. My father is a narcissist and is just like a control freak. And I really do think a lot of that came from his upbringing, because from what I know, there was no socialization with anyone outside of your church.
Yeah.
So there were no after school activities, there were no sports, there was no hanging out with friends who weren't in your church,
and probably not meeting anyone that has a different opinion than you about anything. You know what I mean? So all you know is just this mono way of thinking. Yeah, you're just like, we're all right. Look at us. We're all amazing. And even if we secretly think something different, we're not going to say it.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And that's from what I know about cults now, that's kind of how they that's how they keep you close and they keep you isolated, right? Because you're not allowed to consort with these people who are outside of your circle who believe differently from you.
Yeah.
Made to believe that they're dangerous and that they're going to do you harm with their ideas or whatever.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So my dad never had the opportunity to be involved in any activities, any clubs, any sports. And that was really, really difficult for him. And I think it was probably even more difficult than he ever admitted.
Sure.
And so he had this experience of, going to school during the day and then having to come home and work on the farm after school until the sunset. And that was his life, growing up in that small town. And every Saturday they had to host a member, like an elder from the church, every Saturday.
Oh, wow.
And this elder would come over either by themselves or with their family, but it was also a way for the elders to spy on the families. So it was
fascinating.
So it was a way for them to make sure that you were following the rules.
Yeah, like you don't have anything wacky in your house. That's what I experienced with my friend, is like there's a lot of like these people come to your house and it's not like I want them to come over. It's just like, this is what we do. They come over and I have to make them a meal, and it better be a good meal. And
the meal was a big part of it, for sure. And they, the elder would sit at the table with the whole family, and they would watch like the behavior of the children and the behavior of the family. And then afterwards, I think they would have like prayer or sermon or something.
Yeah.
And then on Sunday, of course, was church. And I think, as far as I know, like Sunday was spent like in church for most of the day.
So did you have any siblings growing up, or was it just you?
No, it was just me. I was an only child, which was difficult because growing up on a farm, there was a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like
the worker.
I was the bitch. Yeah.
And your dad was basically been an adult his whole life. So brought
he's like, what do you mean I did it? Get out there.
Exactly. So his parameter for work was already very high because he had to do all of this as a child.
Yeah.
And I, of course, like I was lucky and privileged in that I was able to do sports, and I was in soccer at a very early age. And then when I got to high school, I transitioned into track and field and cross country. But the problem with that was that, even if I was doing like activities or like fun things, he put so much pressure on me to be the best that I could be, which of course you always want your children to be the best they can be. But like the pressure was like very intense, and there was this perfectionist standard, right? And so I'm sure he got a lot of that upbringing. But I also think that he gleaned a lot of that because he missed out on all these things, and he wanted to somewhat live vicariously through me in a way.
Yeah.
And he used to say on a pretty regular basis how much he really was sad that he could never partake in these activities. And I do feel for him for that.
Yeah.
I certainly do. And
was he athletic too? Because you're like super athletic. Okay, so he probably also would have done well had he been able to participate. So.
Yeah, and so in his experience, he, you know, throughout school age up until the end of high school, he was in the church with his family, and then he made the decision that he wanted to go to college. And so he ended up going to college at University of Rochester in upstate New York.
Yeah.
And he left the church at that time. So he made the decision that he was no longer going to be part of the Plymouth Brethren.
Wow.
Yes. So when he went to college, he was done. He was just done. And unfortunately, when you leave this church, you are excommunicated from the family. You are not able to have any communication with any of the members that have left the church. Wow. And vice versa.
Yeah.
So he was very much on his own, but he was able at that time to pick up some activities. And he did rugby, which he was very good at. And then after he graduated college, he got into car racing. Oh, okay. So he very much kind of like chased the adrenaline rush. And it was probably because he was, you know, so sheltered for so long and just, you know, but he was pretty successful in both those things, but he put a lot of time and money into both of those activities because I think that he felt that he had been left out of so much.
Right.
So anyway, he left the church at the age of 18, and never went back. The rest of the family was still, so his brothers and sisters were still all in the church. And my aunt Mary Kay was the second person to leave, and she left when she was in her late 20s. So she did also go to college, but the rules were that if you went to college, you were not allowed to live at school. So you had to come home every day.
Okay.
And you again couldn't do any activities.
That's so crazy.
I know.
And so
I know.
did they say, like, what was their purpose for not doing the activities? Did they say the activity itself was the issue, or did they feel like they didn't want you around other people?
It was definitely part of not being around other people. I think that which is somewhat sometimes surprising to me, because I think a lot of times, like we had just talked about, like, cults do try to isolate you and maybe kind of almost keep you uneducated, because then they're able to manipulate you.
Right.
But in this case, they must have greatly respected higher education, because you were allowed to go to college.
Yeah.
But you, again, like, you weren't supposed to do certain things. Like, you couldn't, I think I remember my aunt saying, like, she couldn't carpool with anyone outside of the church to school, or like there were all these like little weird you know?
You can do it, but we will make it difficult for you to do it.
You're not leaving us.
Yeah.
Like, you can learn stuff and bring it back to the church to use, but you are not using it to leave us.
Right. Yes. I don't know. I don't know. But
so she was the second one to leave.
So she was the second one to leave, and she had a different experience from my dad.
Okay.
And I think this is where, like, men and women, their outlook on men and women differs. And, you know, men are, and of course this somewhat relates to what they say in the Bible, like, men are the heads of the household. They're the strong ones. They're the, you know, the providers and whatnot. And then women are kind of expected to, you know,
support the men. Yeah.
Keep the home.
Keep the home, support the men in their endeavors, have the kids, etc. So when he left, there was less pushback, but when she left, she was stalked.
Oh my God.
For months and maybe even years.
Wow.
And she moved in with my dad so my dad had gotten an apartment in downtown Rochester. This was after college for both of them, because she's 2 years older than him. And she was maybe like 28, 29 at this time. So he was done with college as well. And so she moved in with him because she was leaving the church and she could no longer stay with the family in Williamson. And she told me that once a month, a group of elders from the church would show up at the house, and they would host like a type of sermon, but it was also like a trying to get her back in type situation. And they would all like descend on the home and expect to be invited in, and they would all sit in the living room.
Oh my God.
So intimidating. My God.
Yep. And she said that they followed her wherever she went.
And she's 20 something years old.
She's in her late 20s. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So then, was your mom in the church as well, or?
No. My mom and my dad met when it was after college. Probably when he was in his late 20s, they met.
Okay.
Yep. Mid to late 20s. And she was not at all. She grew up in Ohio.
Okay.
And then moved to North Carolina for a little while, and then ended up in Rochester because her family had a summer home in this little place called Fairhaven, which is on Lake Ontario. And ended up in Rochester because she so loved the summer home that she like just really wanted to move there. So so that's when they met. And he just gave her the runaround for years and years. He proposed to her 3 times.
Oh my God.
Actually went. My poor mother.
Well, she kept coming back for more.
And my mom's friends will say that like she was just the town beauty, and the talk, like could have gotten any man she wanted. She had been proposed to by 2 other men before this, and had said no, and just didn't really want anything to do with men.
Yeah.
And then he came along, and she was just fell super hard for him. And just put up with it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And they got married. So they were older, like an older couple. And I would say they were older parents. So, my mom was 36 when they got married, and my dad was 39.
Oh, wow.
And so they had been dating for like, I think
years.
My mom said 9 or 10 years before they finally got married. And then they had me. My mom was 40 when they had me.
Oh, so they were married for a minute too before.
Yeah. He's like, let me just make sure that this is gonna.
Well, I do think she also unfortunately had a couple miscarriages.
Okay.
Yeah. So they wanted me to have siblings, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be.
Right.
But my mom was kind of my protector growing up. So she was like an angel. I mean, she truly was. She was just the most wonderful person. And my dad was, like I said, really hard on me and just very controlling. And she was like my protector, which was hard because I would overhear conversations of them talking about my dad talking about how I was the reason why their marriage was falling apart. And
yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah. And from what I've heard, when I was younger, like when I was, before I turned 0 years to 10 years or so, my dad was like a good dad. But once I started to kind of like get my own opinions and think for myself, that's when we really clashed, because I'm also a pretty headstrong person myself.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work out very well. So
yeah, not only were your opinions different than his, but he was jealous that you got to
say them. Probably, honestly.
That's probably very true. Yes.
And didn't have the
shame or whatever
intelligence to like process that.
Well, I think he didn't understand, or not didn't understand, but like subconsciously was like, no, like children are to be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
Right. And that was his experience and his reality. So when I started talking back or like asking
Being
questions or,
Yeah.
you know, saying why, and he said, because I said so, and me saying that's not a good enough answer, like he didn't like that. He didn't like that.
Yeah.
And then was he did he raise you religious at all? Like when he left the church, was he still pretty religious but just not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Interestingly, well, I don't know if it's interesting or not, but yes, very much so. We went to church every Sunday. He had this beautiful Bible at home, that if for whatever reason, if we couldn't go to church or sometimes during the week, he would read like a passage at dinner. And we were for a long time, we had a church. Interestingly, we lived on this little hill, and then you'd go down the hill like 200 meters away, and there was a church right there.
Okay.
And we went to that church for
Wow.
most of my childhood. And of course he had a falling out with them because he has a falling out with everyone.
A little bit of hot goss for you there.
Oh man.
Like so serious and like, and of course he had a falling out.
Because that's what Dad does.
That's what he does. That's what he does. So until he had a falling out, we went every Sunday, and we were very involved. I mean, they got married there, actually.
Oh, wow.
They got married at that church. We, like, everyone we knew was buried at the cemetery. Like, you know,
It was your family's church.
my mom taught Sunday school. I spent Halloween there. I spent all of there was a haunted house in the kitchen of the church. Like, we spent all our holidays there. We had Thanksgiving dinner there. Like, it was such a big part of our lives. And then he had something happened, and I still to this day don't really know what it was.
How old were you when that happened?
I was probably like 9 or 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that could have been part of it too, is maybe he was pissed off about that and just like took it out on you. Because that's like, the church are people that he can't control, but then you're a kid that he can, in theory, control.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah. And then my mom and I continued to go even when my dad didn't go, because my dad refused to go after that time. And she and I continued to go, but there was so much like bad blood there. And my dad would be so angry when we came home that it like wasn't worth it.
Yeah. Now you're in the middle of a fight between your dad and the church. Like, how comfortable is that?
Right. It was so uncomfortable. And my aunt also went to the church. So my aunt didn't live very far from us, and that's why she and I are still so close, because she was kind of my escape. Like, I lived with her quite a bit in my like late teens and early 20s, because when I couldn't live at home because things were so volatile. And so she went to that church, and now she's actually the secretary of that church.
Oh, wow.
It's so funny. When I say it all out loud, I'm like, oh, this is weird. Like,
you get your little connector string.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have like the wall that's like, Dad, all the fights, strings.
Oh man, for real.
Cut strings.
Yes. Yeah. Now they're cut. I've cut them all.
That's right. Except for Aunt Kay's. Her is strong. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, did you guys, did he have another job outside of the farm, or was the farm his main source of income for you guys?
Oh, actually, the farm wasn't a huge source of income.
This was just like work for you to do.
Look at the face.
Mm-hmm. My dad has a lot of things going on. He's a hoarder.
Okay.
So I grew up, like I said, on 40 acres of farmland. On that 40 acres, we lived in a big white farmhouse, and that was built in the early 1800s. So this house is old as shit.
Yeah.
And was part of the Underground Railroad.
Wow.
And then also on the property were 3 barns, or are 3 barns. They're still there. My dad still lives there. So, excuse me. The 3 barns are full of crap. Like, he would go to auctions. Oh, this is a funny story. So when I was young, like kindergarten and under, my mom, so raising me, like when I was young, before I got to school, my mom didn't work. She stayed home with me. And then I think like when I got to primary school or kindergarten, I can't exactly remember when, she started working on the weekends, and she would just work every Saturday as an X-ray technician.
Okay.
And she never graduated college. She dropped out of college when her dad died, in her 20s. So she had an X-ray tech like associate's degree. And so she would go every Saturday. She would do this, and it was my time with my dad. Well, on Saturdays, my dad would take me to auctions.
Oh boy.
To buy giant tchotchkes for the house.
To fill the barns.
To buy the most ridiculous shit y'all have ever seen. It was just like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Some of it was antique and like nice furniture and stuff.
Some of it was.
Some of it was. A lot of it was car parts, because he was he's an engineer. So he did a lot of like our car work at home, like as a car mechanic type stuff. Because he's a very smart man. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's an absolute genius. He truly is. So he would go hunting for like car parts and stuff, but he would invariably end up with all sorts of crap in our pickup truck. But what would happen is that he would leave me in the car for like 6 hours.
Oh God.
Yeah.
No.
Not great.
And just go look at junk.
And never told my mom that this is what he was doing. Made her believe that we would be out like gallivanting around having a grand old time, when in reality I was either sitting in the car reading a book for 6 hours because I didn't know what else to do, or he would drag me around the yard with him. Around all these like old men with overalls on.
You're like, please leave me in the car for 6 hours.
Yeah, you're like, that's better than this.
And then, because he felt bad, he would take me to get a cream puff at the local bakery.
Oh God.
And that was my bribe. That was
to
my
not
bribe.
say anything.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's why my mom never knew. My mom got diagnosed with cancer when I was 23, and she was 63. She found out that year, like when she was ill, she found out about that. She never knew.
Oh wow.
And I didn't know she had never. I kind of like
Yeah.
assumed she knew. So
Yeah.
that was crazy. Yeah, so that was so anyway, he would bring all this crap home, and then he would fill the barns with all of this stuff. And the stuff has never gone anywhere. The stuff has remained, and he has only added to it over the years. So he lives in a hoarding, like,
has it gotten to the house, or is it still only was it in the house when you were growing up at all, or did your mom
No, my mom kept it out.
Yeah,
my mom kept it out. And then when my mom separated, my mom and dad separated when I was in my early 20s, like 20, I think it was 21, 21 or 22. And she moved out. And at that point it kind of started to come into into the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So growing up, were you allowed to have like close friendships and sleepovers and that kind of stuff, or was he strict about who you could be friends with?
Not really. He wasn't really strict in that manner. I would say he was more strict with my time. Okay. So it was more about, what did I have going on? Do I he again, because of the way he was raised and the fact that he was always working and there was never any time for play. Yeah. And as a kid, that's no way to live, when you're a kid, you need to be a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because of that, I didn't get a lot of free time myself. I didn't get a lot of time for recreation. I wasn't allowed to watch TV. I was not really like, it was a little bit more permissible for me to read. I was a big reader when I was growing up, and still am, but I often and I remember reading with I had a flashlight, and I would pull
like
the
that
covers
that was
over.
your time.
Yeah, because he would like cut it off. So I do remember doing a lot of that when I was a kid, because I had to hide what I was doing.
Which was reading.
Like you said he was like monitored your time. Was it like like judging it for like
value?
Value, right? Like what are you
Yes.
using your time for things that are valuable?
Right. Very much so. Like, are you
practicing or studying? Yeah, like something needs to be, all your time and effort needs to be put towards a goal.
Something.
Yeah.
Right.
It needs to be productive, right? It can't be recreation. It can't be just for fun. It has to lead to something. There has to be,
and you're like, social skills do lead to valuable valuable things.
And I truly was, you guys, like, I was a painfully shy kid because I grew up with older parents. And they would, they would take me everywhere with them. So I mean, that's good. They didn't often leave me at home with a babysitter, but to do things, all of their friends who were their age, their kids were in their 20s.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would, when I'd go to Thanksgiving or I'd go to Christmas or I'd go, to some dinner party, it was with all adults.
Yeah.
Right. So you're brought to things, but it's like in the role of a tiny adult. Right. It's not like we'll bring you to the thing and then you go play in the basement with the kids. It's like, no,
there's no nerve.
Quail and talk about whatever.
Yes, absolutely. I was expected to be at the adult table having having thought-provoking conversations. Literally.
Right.
Yeah. So did that make it hard to relate to kids that were your age when you were growing up, as far as in school?
Yeah, it was. I was a very
like, did you find kids boring? Were you like, oh, this is what you're talking about?
I didn't. No, I don't think I found them boring. I think that I was very desperate to be popular because I felt that I was so out of touch, and I felt left out of things, and I felt like I was different.
I feel like no TV and
no TV
go to public school. It's got to be really difficult. Like, there were a lot of
exactly. There were a lot of conversations that I didn't feel like I could take part in. Also my parents were, when I was growing up, my parents were pretty poor. And so I lived in hand-me-downs. And so I would feel some type of way about the clothes I was wearing. I also, I'm extremely blind. Like, I have the worst eyesight known to mankind. And I got glasses in 2nd grade, and they were these huge.
Yes. I had what I thought were very cool metal rim glasses. And it was the same as you. Like, I'll never forget, I guess when I went to the eye doctor, they told my parents, they were like, how have you not recognized this child is blind? And I remember putting glasses on and being like, oh my God, that's what I specifically remember watching the X-Men cartoon, and I was like, that's more than one X-Men?
Yeah.
Just taking them off and putting them back on, and not, that was for me, that was a huge turning point in my life where I was like, oh my God, everybody's face, you can recognize someone when you're not standing more than, when you're closer than 1 foot away.
Right. Exactly. But when you're a kid and you have to get glasses and none of your classmates have glasses, and you have these big little, these round, I will never forget them. They were bright blue. I thought that was cool. I picked those. I don't know why.
I just got bright blue glasses.
But I'm sure that the lens wasn't like an owl.
No.
Yeah, that was more the problem.
So did you get picked on in school, or were you did you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did. Not until I was really in intermediate school. But when I was like in grades like 4 to 6, I started at that point. I started riding the activity bus, which was like, you know, the after school bus.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I was a part of a couple clubs and stuff, and so I would stay later after school, and then the activity bus was open to more kids because it had less kids on it, so that the route would be bigger, and you'd have like kids that weren't on your normal bus route. And that's when they really picked on me. And I think they just saw like a weird looking kid with weird looking clothes and probably didn't really know how to have childish conversations, you know? So they're like, oh, who's this little adult in this like little body? Like,
and you're like, you fools, I've read 3 books this week.
Oh, that was the other thing. I would sit in the lunchroom with my book in the cafeteria, and I would read all throughout lunch. So no wonder. I mean, no wonder.
Which now as an adult, I'm like, that sounds nice.
I know. I still do that. Girls, I went to Starbucks last week and sat after work. I sat in Starbucks. Meanwhile, obviously it's COVID. So like there's 2 tables in the whole Starbucks, like super far away from each other. And I didn't even want anything to drink. I got like a small decaf coffee because it was like late and I'm old and I can't drink coffee late now because I'll just stay up all night. So I like sat in the corner with my Kindle and I read for 2 hours. That's what I do for fun.
Sounds nice.
It was wonderful. Really nice.
Amazing.
Yeah. So and then so that was like intermediate school, and then junior high, and then high school. And in high school I picked up running. Well,
did that help probably give you like a built-in group of friends on the team?
For sure. I played soccer for a long time, but I wasn't very good at soccer. So I had a group of friends on the soccer team, but I was like second string. So I wasn't, I didn't have the first string girls were kind of cliquey and stuff. So,
yeah, sure.
So then,
we're like, yeah, we don't know, but yeah.
I've heard. I was intimidated by them.
Oh, very intimidating.
On the sports I didn't play. I was like,
they looked cliquey from the bench. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're athletic and you can work a flat iron better than me. I have nothing to add here.
Wait, you're athletic and you're the homecoming queen? Okay. Must be nice.
I'll plan your event and then you go ahead and win it. Okay, great.
So then in junior high I started running track and did really well. Like I got a couple school records and stuff, but that was like modified track. It's like whatever. And then I got to high school, was running
Look at you qualifying your achievements right now. Those were only modified, so like they don't count.
They count.
And then in high school I ran track and did my freshman year, I ran indoor and outdoor and did really well. And I kind of became friends with some of the upperclassmen. And because I was like the only freshman on varsity. And then my sophomore year, because my freshman year I still played soccer, but again I was like second string, and the cross country coach would like come to all my she would come to some of my games to try to like convince. She's like, Amy, you're not really that good at soccer. Like, come over to the dark side.
Yeah.
So then I decided to run cross country, and I did extremely well, which was great. But it definitely helped me make more friends. It helped me. I also in high school I was in a lot of advanced classes, so I was friends with a lot of upperclassmen. Yeah. So I had a great high school, like a much better high school time than I had like earlier in life.
Yeah.
I was still very nerdy, but like I was a nerd who decided that she would try to go wear Abercrombie. So that was like an interesting situation.
But you also picked up on things you were good at and started like doing, you're like, oh, here's where I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely. So, so high school was fun, but high school was also like my dad just like kicked all the pressure up a notch, So
Yeah.
I was in all AP and IB classes. And just took on a lot. Also still had a lot to do at home, of course, and then was trying to be like one of the best runners in the state.
Minor tasks.
NBC.
And my dad, like, just being such an authoritative type of person, he wasn't very good at allowing other people to coach me. So that was like a lot of like clashing of minds, if you will, and it was confusing for me as a young athlete to like be hearing different things from different people. Like my coach would say this and then my dad would say that, and then there was another parent on the team who was kind of similar to my dad, and his son was like a state champion, and they kind of like took me under their wing a little bit, and he would give me advice and I'd just be like,
Yeah.
So that was kind of crazy. So at that time it was like, things with the tension with my dad was not good. And that's when I would go spend a lot of time at my aunt's house. And I just kind of lost myself a little bit my senior year. Like, I think I was very burned out.
I'm burned out just listening to it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Can I pause for a quick timestamp moment?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. My time is messed up. I have to jump to something. I feel awful. Can we do a part 2, or do you guys want to finish without me? What is the best way to do this?
I think we can probably close now if you want. Do you have anything you want to plug, Amy?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I'm so sorry, Amy.
That's okay.
This is wildly disrespectful. I messed up my time.
That's okay. No, that's totally fine. Yeah. Do you just want me to go into it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll post it in the show notes too, just so everybody knows.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. So you guys can find me. Best place to interact with me is probably on Instagram. My fitness and running Instagram is at chasing with 2 G's _ Amy with 2 Y's.
Cool.
So that's like, if you want to interact with me like fitness wise and like running wise, that's probably the best place to do it. I also have a personal Instagram, and that one is at Amy Means Love. And that's just my personal one. I'm just going to put a little warning out there. I post a lot of political stuff on there. You might have to just take a beat before you follow me there, because you might get mad. I also I'm super excited to announce that I do have a podcast coming out with my best friend, and so you can follow us there at Pearl Girl Pod, and that is just about it's comedy podcast.
I would say your other co-host is a comedian, right?
Neither of us are like comedians. We're just fucking hilarious.
Yes.
Works for
and we just banter really well together. And we talk a lot about pop culture, social justice, politics. We have some like deep stuff that we talk about, like sexuality, and like we have a guest this week who's a psychic.
Awesome.
Just all sorts of like fun stuff. Our website there is pearlgirlpodcast.com. And then my website, if you guys are ever interested in online training or online coaching, or if you live in Denver and you want to do it in person, my website is www.bodybyamyd.com.
And her we'll put everything in the show notes, guys, and we'll put in all the promo too. But your Instagram is so gorgeous. Like the Chasing Amy one is just like these beautiful like I don't like to run, my legs touch, it's not good. Everything hurts.
Chafing is real, girl. Chafing is real.
But then I like look at your Instagram and I'm always like, oh, it's so pretty.
Oh.
I'm like, maybe I could just do one run.
The
Just
dog
for
I'm
fun.
watching escaped off his leash this weekend, and also not a runner, but he is, and my chest hurt all day. And I was like, damn, you gotta fix this.
Oh, wow. So you had to become a runner.
I had
for
to
a
in
hot
that
minute.
moment. Yeah. Thank you
Oh,
so
too
much
funny.
for being with us, Amy. Your stories are incredible.
I love it. Yeah, I feel like we could just listen to you. I want to be like, maybe we can try to arrange another thing because I'm
Yeah.
like, and then what happened when you went to college? And then how did you end up training?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a lot there. There's a lot there. But I would love to be on again or
Yeah.
you know, to at least keep in touch. Definitely. Thank you guys so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, don't forget to subscribe, like, listen, look, learn, run, all the good stuff,
All the things, do them.
all the things. And we will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.